What's happening, troops? Welcome back to another video here on the SharpDiv YouTube channel. In this video today we will be going through the results from the weekend. If you're new around here and you like talking a wee bit about Scottish football, then please subscribe down below. Now before we get into talking a wee bit about the Rangers game, I'm trying to keep it a wee bit more light-hearted rather than being so serious all the time, because Scottish football be like that. It's like a day out at M&D's. But firstly, we will speak a wee bit about the other games in the SPFL. Obviously, Celtic versus Aberdeen was postponed. Hamilton were defeated by St Mirren. You've got to start thinking now that Hamilton are in big trouble. You would think that these are games that they would get themselves right up for, and although they did have a lot of chances in the match, it was St Mirren that took theirs through big Jonathan Obika. If you watch the channel, you'll know that he's my absolute idol. Sorry, Dougie. You see wee Dougie? His time at Hamilton Academical. Absolute hero of a man. I was actually on a live watch along on the Talk Scottish Football podcast, and I covered the Kilmarnock vs St Johnstone game. I'm going to leave their link in the description below. Now this was a game that Kilmarnock absolutely dominated. Benjamin Button was on fire again, Chrissy Butt. They probably could have had a penalty in the first half, but it wasn't to be. They went ahead only for 2 minutes later for them to get a red card, and that totally just changed the game. Although St Johnstone didn't create a lot, they managed to get themselves back in the game, and then Cut Broadtoe quavers it right into the path of Michael O'Halloran, and he gets a goal. St Johnstone 3 points, first win of the season. Kelly still winless. Dundee United as well with a really positive result. Nicky Clark is a striker. Yes, that guy, he got another goal, won them the game, and handed Ross County their first defeat of the season. Finally, the last game of the weekend that wasn't Rangers was another 0-0, coincidentally. Quite a boring game. Thought Motherwell were the better team in the match, but there wasn't a lot to really speak about. Right, well that means that there's one more game to sink our teeth into, isn't there? Livingston 0, Rangers 0. The spaghetti hand strikes again. Now I was actually really confident going into this match. I thought that although it will be a bit closer than the other games, I thought we could break their defence down. Livingston started the match with a 4-5-1 formation, but they were missing one key man, and that was Lyndon Dykes, the guy who was linked to be going to Rangers. I believe now a £2 million bid has been accepted from QPR. He seems to be off, so that was a massive blow for Livingston going into this game versus Rangers, and I think it was their only real chance to get a win out of the game, and some would even have said to get anything out of the game. But as we've seen, Rangers were really poor on the day. Don't get me wrong, the Livingston back five was outstanding, the four in defence and the goalkeeper. But for large spells of that game, although Rangers were keeping possession, they just weren't hurting Livingston at all. They weren't getting in behind. The manager said in the post-match press conference that he was happy with the tempo of the game. Me personally, I thought that Ryan Jack and Glenn Kamara were far too slow. They were taking 6, 7, 8 touches of the ball and then just passing it to the side. Don't think that's good enough against teams like this that are absolutely parking the 75 bus. Rangers of course started the match with a 4-3-3 and most of the players just went at it. Our defence were absolutely solid, did nothing wrong. The right back and the left back tried to get balls into the box. They were playing really high, but as I touched on, the two centre mids were poor, really bad. And maybe, just maybe, we don't need to have Kamara and Jack for games like this, especially because they didn't have Dykes. Every time the ball went forward, Golson and Hollander were dealing with it, and if guys like Arfield who started and Stephen Davis and the likes cannot give you that inspiration you need, you've got to start questioning, is it the right decision that we're letting a guy like Greg Docherty go? Because when he went to Hibs last season, he showed that he could compete in this league. He was the best player, for God's sake, and the Hibs fans absolutely loved him. He was chipping in with goals, he was chipping in with assists and some cracking strikes at that. Or maybe is it that Hadji's just becoming isolated out there on the right hand side and his best position is in the 10, which I personally think it is. And once we get guys like Roof up to top fitness, he can go out in the right, because I know he can play right across the front three until Morelos leaves or he stays. Talking about Morelos, he was a guy that was starved of the ball yesterday versus Livingston. He never really had a touch, and when he did, it wasn't in the positions that you want to see him in. Yes, he had one big chance right before he was hooked with a header, and that is one where you're expecting him to do better, but it was just like a big 50 pence header right over the crossbar, and you're thinking to yourself, this is not going to be our day. We've mentioned the fact that our centre mids were absolutely missing, but you've got to give credit to the big man Marvin Bartley for Livingston, their captain. I thought he was sensational up until he had to go off. He was here, there and everywhere. He was even running forward. It just showed that they had no real attacking impetus. If he's going to be the player that's going to be their most threat going forward. Yanis Hadji and Ryan Kent, two players you want to get involved in the game, get them as much opportunities as possible. Ryan Kent, for me, got himself into positions, he was beating men. Maybe you would like to see him to do it a wee bit more often, but sometimes when you're playing out wide, you become isolated. And if I was to pick one player out that actually did have a wee go and popped up here and there and had a couple chances, although not gilt edge, it was that man Ryan Kent. Yanis Hadji, he got hooked as well. He's not had a great start to the season, and maybe, as I alluded to earlier, he needs to be in that number 10 position, influencing play a wee bit more, because we know he's not got a lot of pace, but he's got that eye for a pass. Oh my god, I've just been editing this video and I just realised that I never mentioned Borna's free kick, but how did I forget to mention that? Wow. What a strike for the guy. You're thinking to yourself, he's just pulled this out the bag here. Got us a goal we need. And that wee goalie just pops up, doesn't he? Sucker punch. The manager made 3 substitutions in the match. He brought on Roof and he brought on Brandon Barker at the same time. Roof still looks like he is not firing on all cylinders. Everybody knows that. He's just got to be given time. He's got to catch up fitness-wise with the rest of the other guys, but it didn't impact the game really at all. Brandon Barker, I think, was the brightest out of the 3. He was getting into positions. He looked like he was trying, although it wasn't always coming off for him. I thought he was bright in parts. However, Eaton just ain't it at the moment, is he? He was getting the ball away slackly. He was put through at one point. They turned back into trouble. I think maybe the pace of the game up here is something he's going to need to get used to, but if you compare him to Balogun, a guy who was playing, obviously Eaton was playing as well, Balogun just looks like he's fitted in, like a fish to water, whereas Big Eaton, not so much. You've got to say this is disappointing. Everybody was making a big deal over the fact that Celtic were missing games and Rangers could stretch the lead to 11 points, even though they obviously would have had games in hand, but not to be again. So what does that leave the league table looking like? Hamilton Academical are bottom of the league joint with Aberdeen. I actually thought this was quite funny because Hamilton have played 3 games, Aberdeen only 1, yet Hamilton are still bottom of the league, not looking good for the Reister. Livingston are in 10th position with Motherwell, Kilmarnock just above them. St Johnstone in 7th, Celtic in 6th, St Mirren in 5th, Dundee United in 4th, Ross County in 3rd, and Hibs and Rangers joint top of the SPFL. Rangers still top of the league there, but it's no good at all. That is going to do us for this video, people. I was going to do this video yesterday, but I realised it was going to be my first match reaction back, and I didn't want to go into it being overly negative, although that's the general consensus in the field. I want to keep it a wee bit more light-hearted, as I said. Scottish football is a pain in the... I'll be back during the week, of course. There will be another podcast coming with Jack, and we've launched our Instagram page, which you can go and follow right now. We'll be giving updates on all things Scottish football. But that's going to do us here. I've been SharpDiv, you've been yourself, and I'm out. All my weakness keep on lingering.